Kuhn is the fullback with the first and goal. Kuhn gets the call. Pyle trying to make his way in for the touchdown. What a great second effort.
Y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the. Here comes the. Here comes the. Y'all don't really want it like that. E-double-L. I said so. I keep big bills up in my heart on the dirty like blood. So ain't got no twist in my head, but I'm still dreadful.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way and acting as your lead blocker to fantasy excellence championships, which are right around the corner right now. We're pumped. I'm pumped. My co-host is pumped. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself, and we are doing an auction spectacular. We've been talking about this for 4 years, maybe. So, right on time. And, we're going to dive deep into this
Typical
stuff.
pace.
Right. I got my auction coming up Sunday. The Wolves is maybe a week after that.
Yep,
but we want to get
Tuesday,
primed and ready to go. How you doing, man?
I can't wait. It is that time of the year. And it's always a little bittersweet because right now means I'm about to head back to school. And that's always, summer life is the best life when you're doing all this good stuff full time. But it also means real football is about a week or two away. Drafts are here. So it's that bittersweet of my favorite thing in the world, football and drafting is back and in full swing. And of course, the beauty of the summer freedom sadly goes away. But man, it is the best time of year. And I can't wait. And I can't wait to chat auction. Like you said, we both have been fully immersed in auction leagues our entire fantasy career, yet we've never done an actual super show. But I think we're both very, very good at it. Look at the teams we've drafted over the last few years. So I'm excited to impart our wisdom on the Wolfpack here.
Right. So let's get right into it and let's talk about why auctions, because, we've been talking a lot of best ball. A lot of people do snake drafts. I mean, I used to be a snake draft guy, mostly because I didn't know any better. But now I'm full on auction. Yes. 100%. And every time I would bring it up on our past podcasts, you'd be like, oh, let's not talk too much about auction because we're doing this. We'll do a separate auction show. So here we are. Why do we care so much about auctions? Why do we feel that it is the superior form of drafting a team?
Yeah, I'll list out everything that comes to mind for me, and then you just add on to anything you think. And hopefully we convince you, whether it's your main league or not, get an auction in there. It is so fun. I mean, first of all, it's just fun. That is the number one reason. Fun. Every single second matters, whether you're trying to price enforce and not let someone go too cheap, whether you're trying to hammer get your guy. You're not just making your pick and then waiting for another 12 picks to go until you're back in action. It is so much fun. There's always heat on you. But most of all, I think it really allows the cream to rise to the top. It requires more skill because you have no excuse. Every single person is available to you. It's not like I can't get Jonathan Taylor because I don't have the number one pick. Right. Everybody. You could have Taylor and Kupp if you want. You have the flexibility to create whatever roster you can dream up of. Of course, you go, Taylor and Kupp. The rest of your team might be complete trash, but every single possibility is out there. So it just eliminates any excuses of draft slot and whatnot. And on that note, too, I just feel like teams are way more unique. You kind of get a feel for a team drafted at 5 is going to look somewhat like this. A team drafted at 6 is going to kind of look like this. Whereas you look at your auction leagues and the teams are just so much more unique, so different. It makes trading better in the season because there's so many different strengths and weaknesses. I just love everything about it, and I think everyone should absolutely do an auction draft.
You hit the nail on the head on just about all this. I really want to emphasize and reiterate how, first of all, you're just it keeps you on your toes the whole time. I mean, you have to be. You snooze for 90 seconds, you might miss your guy. So, I mean, that's a big thing. You're involved the whole time. But the thing that is a real emphasis for me is that everyone is available. I hate going into snake drafts with the 6th pick or something and knowing that a couple of the guys I truly covet, I have absolutely no chance of having on my team. You can get anybody. Like last year, I was like, I'm getting CMC. I went after him. I got him. It was great for 2 weeks.
Work out.
But I got him. I mean, I got him.
Exactly.
And then I had to recover from that with some smarter picks, CMC for $75, but countered that with Cooper Kupp for 12. So it worked out okay. But I mean, that's the point, though. You go after your guys. It's awesome. You can get anybody you want until you run out of money.
Exactly. And so as we now move into some prices, again, hopefully you are just convinced somewhere, whether it's your main league or not, try out an auction draft. Again, I could not recommend it higher. Looks like some people already know what's coming out of my mouth. That thumbs up button does help us grow, like, shares, retweets, all that good stuff. Get your questions on in as well. We will hit the mailbag after the show, as we always do. And as you can see, running at the bottom, hopefully CJ's pinned it at this point, we're going to allow call-ins. So I don't know if anybody will step up today, but we're going to put the StreamYard link that you use to join in. People will start popping up at the bottom here, whether you want to use video, audio. We're hoping, maybe someone will try it out tonight, maybe not, but it would be awesome in season and right now to just test out this call-in feature and get people to jump in with us and chat ball as well. So if you want to be the first person ever to try it, that link will hopefully be up there for you to do it. All righty. But
Denny Jennings, by the way, in the house.
Oh,
good afternoon,
I love
fellas.
It.
Hey, Denny.
He was in here earlier this week. We got the Wolfpack legends coming on in. So I'm going to pull up here. The way we'll kind of go through this is we'll start with right at the top, prices, because that's what everything comes down to is who are you buying? What is their price? What could be the good deals? Every auction stream you'll ever watch will preface it that every draft is different. One league might hammer running backs harder. One league might hammer, it's always going to be different. That's, again, what also makes auctions so fun is every draft is living and breathing, but auctions truly every second is living and breathing. And it's absolutely amazing. So it is the way to do it. It looks like we already, the call-in function is working because it looks like we got some new faces.
All right, let's just experiment real fast here.
Tunes.
Wanted to see if it worked.
Hey, we got the test out of the way. Get a question ready for us, Tunes. Because
I do. How would I find an auction draft? Because I don't know anybody that has one.
They do public leagues. It's a great question at the top too for anyone just looking to join. I know Yahoo, ESPN both do public leagues for it. Sleeper, you could probably send out some DMs as well. Maybe we get a Roto Street one going. We have to get a real auction draft going too. But yeah, there are definitely public leagues out there. Great question. So I love that one for sure.
That's the first question ever via
and a
video.
Good one. Not a
solid question.
I'm impressed. We didn't just get somebody.
We should do just a 1 year Roto non-dynasty auction league.
It'd be awesome. Absolutely.
That would be so great. Anyway,
back to what we were talking about. Juice, go back on in if you have more questions later. Glad that function works. Great to see. You got to know your prices. And Truth, I know you had a really important preface on pricing as well that we should talk about.
I do. So we looked at Yahoo, and then we looked at ESPN, and then we looked at Fantasy Pros, tried to, finagle them all. So they're half point PPR, $200 budget, 12 teams, that pretty standard, the stuff we like to play under. And what's really important to note is, your highest guys are the highest and stuff, but the numbers attached to these guys fluctuate pretty wildly based on the site that you're on. A couple examples of that, Alvin Kamara right now on ESPN, $58. But if you look at Fantasy Pros, he's like 44. If you look at, I don't know what he is on Yahoo, but he's probably in the 50 range. He's probably right on that sheet somewhere that you're looking at right there, Wolf.
I think he's 44. It might be 38 on Yahoo. Yeah, 38.
Okay. All right. So just he's a great example, and I'll stick with him, maybe give you a couple more examples. So 58 on one site, 44 on a site, 38 on a site. Okay. Regardless of where you think his actual value lies, I would personally think it's closer to 58 than the other ones. If you're in a draft and somebody throws $44 out, like if you're on a Fantasy Pros draft, if they had one and they throw out $44, people subconsciously are going to attach that arbitrary number to whatever they think what they're willing to bid. So you get up around 46, 47, 48, people start getting squeamish going over that, even though if you think he's worth 55, that's still a great deal. So be aware of the site you're drafting on, and you got to use those prices as a measuring stick. I'm doing an ESPN auction later, and that's what I've been doing all my mock auction drafts on. So I think my information is pretty up to date. I'm not sure how well I articulated that. The point is, the prices are all over the place. Some guys you might think you can snag, they might be like, oh, $20, that's cheap. They might be going for $5 on another site.
100%.
So, look for the deals on your given platform.
Exactly. Know your prices on the platform is the key summary because it is so wildly different. And then the other preface to that, or next follow-up, is we have an amazing tool. Our guy Jackson, I don't know if you're tuned in. I know he often does tune into our streams. So if you're there, Jackson, shout out to you. Some of the best content on the site comes through Jackson, our trade value charts, all that, including as well the auction series. There's a 4-part series on here. And part 1 is all about how to know what a fair price is for a player, and he has this incredible. I could use a whole hour to show you how beautiful the tool is. So I'll just kind of show the fact that you can customize it to how many starters are in your league, how many players are in the league, what, all that good stuff. You can even go down to like look at your league history and say, how much do you think this guy will go based on your league history? And it will help you calculate all these different things. It's based on projections. This one, when you use the default one on the site, uses Fantasy Pros projections, because that's what we know a lot of people look at. If you do buy our draft guide, it's all done. It's going to be up. I know Derek is just finishing it up today, so can't wait. It's going to be up live probably after the stream. He sent me an email that everything looks all good. So once I can get to a check on that, I think it'll be up today. So that will have my projections, my auction values calculated in this system. It's just awesome. And then you can kind of like practice making builds here on this tab, build your team, and you can do little practice runs. I have a simpler blueprint that I'll show us today, because just, I would play with this again, like I said, for an hour, but definitely check out the auction series. It starts with prices, then he goes into budgeting and game plan, which is what we'll move into after we look at prices, some of our favorite ones, tips and strategies. The series really follows the exact flow we're going to do here, just in a whole lot more depth than we can do in about an hour or so of a show. So definitely check out that tool, but also even after you know your fair prices, look at the site you're going to be playing on, because it could vary very wildly. You'll know exactly what he's going for in ESPN. The fair price is $70. He's going for 55 on ESPN, but he's going for 65 on Yahoo. Just know those things. Absolutely.
It's super important. I also want to reiterate how great the tool that it's funny. You kept talking about, let's talk about Jackson's tool. And I was just like, yeah. Anyway, but his tool is excellent. It's fantastic. I used it last year. I used it last year. I'm going to use it this year. And I also just want to, pump up the Wolf's Guide, which has actually the content's been done for a little while. I've read it 3 times and I proofread it twice, and it's awesome. I mean, it's his best one he's done. And I mean, you guys know you've bought this thing in the past and you've enjoyed it. This one's the best one yet. It looks the best and the content's the best. And I'm being paid absolutely nothing to say that. I just mean it. I'm serious about that.
I appreciate your kind words, Truth. I would agree. But man, it's. I think everyone's gonna love it. It was a lot more work to make it more visually appealing. That was the most common feedback we got was, can you make it look a little better than it has in the past? And it took an extra week of work to do that, but I think it was well worth the effort. And I think you guys will think the same too. So I cannot wait for you guys to get your hands on that and let me know what you think. But shall we dive into some of these prices?
Let's get into it. Let's talk about some guys that we think are dirt cheap.
Let's go. What do you think? Position by position? I think that might be.
Let's start with quarterbacks. And I'll just read you off a couple that jumped out at me on the Yahoo site. Matt Ryan for $1. This is if you're punting on quarterback. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks you can get for $1, basically. Jalen Hurts, they got him as 12, but they say he usually goes at 6. Love him at 6.
Love that.
Herbert, anywhere around 15, you like a lot. And then there's the range, the $2 to $5 range. Brady, Wilson, Prescott, Rodgers, Stafford, Trey Lance, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. You can punt on the quarterback position and still land an extremely viable fantasy quarterback. That's our point. And this goes back to what we always talk about. There's no point in reaching. I know you like Herbert. I know he's sexy. I'm not sure he's worth reaching for 15.
No, I was going to say, we could even just like look at the position as a whole, as you're saying. I would much rather, and I typically in auction drafts hammer this tier right around there where it's like Wilson, Prescott, Trey Lance. Well, he's got kind of the sexy buzz about him, and I love Trey Lance, but he's the type of player that might go more expensive in an auction than a boring guy like Matt Stafford, who has a little bit of an elbow concern that I think will be nothing come the season. I bet you Lance goes for like $10 and then Stafford goes for $2. That's the tier I'm looking at. I have 14 quarterbacks that I consider very, very viable QB1s, going all the way down to Kirk Cousins, from Josh Allen down to him. And in an auction draft, I want 1 to 2 of those guys that go in that $1 to $2 range, max it out maybe at $5. Like if Russell Wilson, it says 8 here, but you can see $4. There's always 2 to 3 of these top 14 quarterbacks that go for $1 or $3. And you can just pick 2 of them, play the matchups the rest of the year, and budget in just about $5 at your QB position. That's typically my approach there. You mentioned, though, I do love Herbert, and I do. And if I kind of found a value at receiver, or I got a running back for $10 less than I expected to get him for, something of that nature, maybe I landed Keenan Allen, and I know I want to get that Justin Herbert stack. Again, everything's so flexible with an auction. That's why it's so great. he's the one guy, especially in these prices. Like, I'm not paying 36. I'm not paying up for Josh Allen at the same price. It's close to, I know he was on your overpriced too. Mahomes being more than Herbert, no thank you. Not doing that. I love Herbert as like the clear-cut QB2 that I think is just a tiny smidge below Josh Allen. He goes 20-something bucks cheaper. That's the one quarterback I'd maybe consider paying up for, other than Jalen Hurts, as you mentioned. Like 12 for him would be a damn steal, especially 6 for him would be a ridiculous steal as well.
The mock drafts I've been doing on ESPN, he's generally going in the 6 to 7. Even one time I got him for 4. What I will say, I wanted to make one point off one of the things that you said. You talked about Trey Lance. He's a sexy pick right now. He might go for 10. Stafford might go for 2. Right. Another thing about an auction, and this is what makes it awesome, is I would argue it really depends when they get nominated. Yeah. Because if Trey Lance gets nominated relatively early in the draft, you're right. I think he'll go for about 10. If everyone blows their wad and then he goes later, I'll bet he goes for 2 or 3. So, exactly. I mean, we're going to talk about strategy there a little bit because, you'd probably like to get him for 2 if you want him. So obviously you don't want to throw his name out there early, and you hope nobody else does either.
Absolutely. We'll kind of work it. We're going to have a section on strategy at the end, but as these tips kind of make sense, like it just did there, right, we'll toss them in there too. That's the idea of, tier-based drafting. If you always know my rankings, I always go by tiers. I'll pull them up right here, QB tiers. And the one I'm just referencing here, the 6 through 12. Like, yeah. I love all of these guys. You never want to be at the end of a tier because that's when people start to get kind of antsy and like, I need my QB1. I better get him. But if you're right there in the middle and it's kind of ugly and people are slugging through, Russ Wilson after Lamar has burned a bunch of people's wallets, and Justin, you got Allen going for 36, and we get into this tier and someone's going to go in there for $2-3. Be the guy that's there in the middle, scooping them up. Unless, I guess at the quarterback position, every now and again, there's been a few drafts where like nobody pays for Cousins, and then you're in that kind of like it becomes a snake draft range and everyone's just $1. That can happen too, but I'd really emphasize try to at least get one of these signal calls. It'll give you a little peace of mind. You have a nice top 12 guy locked in, and then sure, if a Carr or Cousins, you can sneak them in for $1 late, all the better. But ultimately, I would love to lock one of these guys up for $3 to $5. That's really the sweet.
Or an Aaron Rodgers, by the way, although he's the type of guy whose price is probably going to be more than it should be. Yeah, just because he's Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, if you could slide him in for a couple bucks too, he wouldn't be a bad backup.
Not at all. I think that kind of covers the quarterback pricing. Right. Can we move on? Is there any other quarter? I love the Matt Ryan toss out too. Again, $1. Those type of guys that like will go for $1 at the end. Beautiful, nice high floor to balance it out.
Let's talk running backs.
All right, let me put the
we're just going by Yahoo numbers. CMC, they have planted at 54. I can tell you that in ESPN mock drafts, he goes for around 70. I think today he went for 69. That's about as low as I've seen.
He's going to go for like 65.
Right. I'm saying at 54, I'm all over that. Even Yahoo he goes for an average of 61. So they're undershooting even their own average draft price, whatever. Anyway, $54, he's a steal, obviously. I don't think you have any chance of getting him for that. Aaron Jones, 36. That's interesting to me. Absolutely. Because I have seen him go on ESPN for right in that range. I got him the other day for like 38, and I thought that was a great pickup. I don't know how you feel about that.
I love Aaron Jones. I love a lot of those like early to mid second round running backs that I don't think are all that much of a drop off from the 6 through 12 in the first round. I really see that kind of a big continuation. So guys like Barkley, certainly Alvin Kamara, even more so than Jones. I love Jones. I love him in that tier. So we're, I'll keep kind of going back and forth to these tiers. There's that group of running backs. Mixon often falls in that range too. It looks like on Yahoo, he might not quite be that value, but this kind of Kamara, Barkley, Jones, I'm not as into Swift, but man, if he's going cheaper than he should, I'm okay with it too.
I'm just going to tell you that I think that you have Kamara in the wrong tier. I think he belongs in the tier above.
I think so too. I have him at like 13 overall, so he's ranked as a first rounder pretty much. So I love those guys though. At least getting one of them, regardless of whether I paid up at receiver, paid up for a first round type of running back. Every single one of my blueprints we're going to show you in a sec has at least one of those kind of $36 to $44 running back twos. I really like trying to get 2 of them and my flex as well, and sacrificing some wide receiver, as we'll talk about a lot. But yes, that's my favorite pocket of value at running back is definitely that kind of Jones, Kamara, Barkley, like $35 to $40 range. I absolutely love it.
I do too. I try to hammer that 2 or 3 times.
I think
That's what I'm looking for. I like to have another solid back in my flex if possible. I've been picking up a few times. One time, and I think I'm going to get priced out on this, but one time I got Dalvin Cook, Kamara, and then Zeke as my flex, and I was just like obviously quite pleased with myself.
Shooting a rope to the moon.
Yes.
But the one thing I'd caution there, again, this talk of tiers and tier gaps is 3 of those guys in a vacuum, on a blueprint we make at like $40 if we average them out at. So like 120 for your 3 top running backs. Yeah. I like that a lot. But the thing is that's going to represent, if you had like a Barkley and a Jones and then Kamara hasn't gone yet, a lot of people, that tier drop, I bet you that last person is going for 50, 55.
It happens,
and now they're as expensive as what Henry or Cook would have been. And I don't, not necessarily think they can't pay that off and be worth a Henry or Cook, but I often will try to sneak in, which of those first round running backs, was it Cook? Was it Henry? Somebody will go cheaper than they should. I bet you it will be Henry this year. A lot of people,
people a little down on Henry, huh?
People seem very down on him. It doesn't make any sense to me. Similar to Najee, who's just going to see 300 touches. Like, just find the values where they go. My guess is Henry's going to go a lot cheaper in a lot of drafts than he should. But that's the caution of trying to get 3 of that one tier. You're almost going to start bidding, like costing yourself a lot of money because one of those guys will get moved up.
Well, and hopefully you're not getting those all like boom, boom, boom one at a time. Hopefully you're not having to bid on any of those guys in the first 15 nominations, something like that. Right. And just for the record, Henry going for around 60 on the ESPN mocks I've seen.
Yeah, there you go. And so, like, as you can see, these Yahoo, and we're just going Yahoo because that's the most common one. But again, know your pricing. Fournette and Javonte kind of stand out as overprices. Certainly, if Barkley and Kamara are going for $10 to $15 cheaper, like no, thank you. Give me those guys all day. And then you kind of drop down to, you mentioned Zeke. I like that price at Zeke. I even like Connor a bit more. I think Connor is however long he's healthy, he's going to be a beast. We know that's the big if with him, and it's a very valid if. But for $30, I don't think his production is going to be very far off these $45, $50 guys for however long he lasts. And then you can get that nice Darrell handcuff for $1 later. Like, I really like that James Conner. That's kind of the cutting point where whether it's Zeke, whether it's Connor, I'd love to have 3 in that top tier. I used to kind of lump Breece Hall in there, David Montgomery, but there's just a lot of gross vibes about both of them this preseason. Certainly $35 for Montgomery. No. But that's kind of where I cut it off and say, I'd love to have 3 running backs at right around that James Conner cutoff point. That'd be my real
speaking of cutting off, I'm going to have to cut you off real quick, Wolf, just for a second.
Yeah.
Because we have a guest on the pod briefly on our streaming service. Introduce yourself.
The legend.
I can barely hear you.
Oh, I don't hear it either.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, get close. What's up, boys?
What's going on?
Kenny Jennings, the legend himself.
Yeah, Eagles.
I'm rocking the Eagles slides on the pod. Nice.
Oh,
what's up, Denny?
How are you guys?
No.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
This will not be good for a Sunday morning.
No.
No, this is why we're going at 1 o'clock.
This is what we'll be drinking them all together on a Sunday morning. I can't wait.
I do have a question. I am in the auction.
Okay.
So who are the 1 or 2 guys that you would look at your first pick?
You mean your first guy you want on your squad, or who would you nominate first?
No, the first guy that you would want on your squad that you would probably put in like $75.
Wolf, who's your dream guy that you're willing to spend up for?
It's definitely Jonathan Taylor. If I'm spending up, it's got to be the number 1 overall pick. I will say I don't really love that strategy this year, the 20 extra bucks to get to Taylor versus like Mixon, and now I have 20 more to get a much better RB2. I'm kind of hammering, like we're talking about these running backs, Denny, that ultimate like Mixon Kamara, like 45 to 50 each. I'd rather have that 100 than 75 for Taylor and then a 20, Breece Hall. Taylor, Breece Hall, or Mixon and Kamara. Give me Mixon Kamara all day is how I kind of look at that.
Got it.
Yes.
All right, Denny, thanks for calling in. It was you're our second video call.
I love it. I love this call-in feature. This is great. The video, the audio, this is awesome. Denny, so nice to chat with you, man. After all these years of just reading your comments, this is
now
great.
You know my ugly face.
That lovely face, that beautiful mug, baby. Love it. Cheers,
care,
baby.
guys.
Thanks for coming on. It's a great new feature, Truth. I love it.
It's crazy. It was awesome. I saw Denny in the thing, and I was like, we got to get him on for.
We got to get Denny on. Yes.
Jennings.
Right, anybody that jumps in too, we'll toss you on. We might save most of them now now that we know it works. Awesome. We might save them to the question, the mailbag, so we don't get too out of the flow as we're ripping here. But no, I mean, great questions, timely questions so far. So good to have them on as well.
All right. So I agree completely with your assessment of the running backs, the tiers where you're looking to land multiple guys in that sweet spot range. It's kind of, similar to like the quarterback sweet spot range you're talking about, except with running backs, we're looking to spend 120-ish on 3 guys. It can get tough. It can get a little pricey. Like I said, on the ESPN mocks I've been doing, I really like Dalvin Cook a lot. I've seen him go as high as 70. I've seen Kamara now start to, it's too much. I'm not willing to spend it. But I mean, you can see you start getting a little stressed as more and more guys that you really like, that you kind of envision landing on your team go. And you don't want a nickel and dime, right? You don't want to lose it over a buck or two. But when you're starting to go $10, $12 more than you wanted to spend, well, that's got to come from somewhere else. And then there's real repercussions for your team. But you start getting stressed because you're like, oh, there's 6 running backs that I'm targeting. I want 3 of them. And all of a sudden, like 4 of them are gone. And you didn't get any of them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean.
And I think you mentioned your nomination strategy and all that. Again, we'll get back into these tips as an overall section. But you got to feel like your draft, if money's flying early, try to get the guys you don't want nominated, whether it's money flying at running backs. Make sure you get Nick Chubb in there. If people have the tight buttholes to start and the money's not coming out as early, nominate the guys you want and make sure you have those 2 running backs. Because the last position you want to be in is, I think, the worst spot you can be at running back is if you miss on these guys and now suddenly you're having to overpay and people are hammering the balanced approach guys are now stuck in this dead zone. And to me, the dead zone of running backs, well, I will say this. I love Travis Etienne if he goes for $23. I think that.
I'll tell you this. I don't love Antonio Gibson at 36.
No, God, that's one of the worst pricings. $2 cheaper than Kamara. That is just hideous. I imagine most people are aware of how far he's fallen this preseason. So that pricing just feels very, very outdated. But even after him, this Jacobs and Harris and Edwards-Helaire, when they fall to around like 10 and 11 in drafts, I don't mind them. But I kind of have the auction equivalent of these guys going at $20 as like that round of 6 to 8 range that I just hate these running backs. They're going for more than a lot of these receivers, like almost double than some receivers that I have as 3rd and 4th round talents. They're going for like 10 or $12, those receivers. This is disgusting to me. Like all of these names. I mean, they sure have, like Dobbins and Dillon have a little bit of upside. I don't mind them in the dead zone, but I hope I have Sanders at 22. No, thank you. Like Singletary, I don't mind him, but $22, God no. Penny 18. Like we get to Edmonds here at 13. That stands out to me. I like that price a lot.
Too.
And like my 3rd running back, if I haven't gone heavy, like I would like to get an Edmonds at 13, a Ramondre at 12. Like this seems okay to me for sure. And I mean, then you look at like the side where it's like Edmonds going for $4 and I don't buy that. Like it's not going to happen. But there's just that pocket of like $22 to $30 running backs that really feels like the dead zone. And you do not, even if you didn't have your top 2 guys, I wouldn't be trying to get those guys as my top. I would just say, fuck it. I know my running backs are going to blow. Let me just load up my receivers. Hope I get some trade bait. Hope I can hit a couple of these, Pollards and Edmonds and take a real 0 RB approach. Dameon Pierce, I do have to ultimately shout that out though.
Yeah,
$1. No way he goes for $1. Like he's one of the biggest risers this preseason, deservedly so. But even $10 for him, I think would be an absolute steal. So I love that. We'll talk about cheap guys and whatnot later on in the stream about who we like to fill out our rosters with. But Robinson,
Brian Robinson, $2.
Yeah, I mean
Darrell Henderson, I also really like it at $1.
Exactly. $1 here. Even $6 would be a nice price for him, but he'll probably go in that $1 to $2.
Yeah, but people have blown their money by the time no one's like throwing Darrell Henderson out like as their nomination for their 2nd or 3rd pick. Like when these guys come around, there's a finite number of guys. There's 16 roster spots per team, 12 teams, 192 guys. Like that, just simple math there. And eventually, like people are out of money, and then these guys just kind of wash up on the shore, and you can just pick them up.
Yeah, right. So we'll talk about that like when it becomes a snake draft. Who are you trying to target? Who are you picking? But you just highlighted a few of them. Brian Robinson. I love Kenny Gainwell, who's not on this list.
Kenny Gainwell, he's on my list.
For $1.
Put him down.
I know, absolutely. And the draft kit, the draft guide, big list of round 10 through 15 sleepers. Those are like the $1 to $2 guys. in your auctions. We also had a great show yesterday with Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros on late round sleepers. So if you want a really in-depth conversation on those later round guys that will probably go for $1 to $2, check that show out. Check out the guide as well. But yeah, I think just to put a bow on the running back position, try to get 2, maybe even 3 of these like 30 and up. Avoid that 20 to 30 range. It's gross. It's hideous. It's way too much. And I think receivers are cheap enough that you really can get away with at least 2, if not 3 of these top like round 1 through 3 running backs that you really, really just crave. I'm all about it.
You're probably not going after any of the top 5 backs this year, right?
No, just because it would ruin this plan of trying to get 3 or keeping the flexibility to maybe get 3.
Agreed.
But you keep your wallet open, because like if Eckler's suddenly only 55 and it's going once, going twice, it's like, well, fuck it. I love Austin Eckler. I was
56.
I thought he was going to exactly. And once they get to, I don't want to pay more than I think 60, I would say at a running back. So whatever that running back ends up being, I'd much rather again have like 45, 45, 50 type of like 3, just round 2, just aces. Maybe a round 1 guy falls to 50. That's my hope, my game plan here.
I agree. I keep my options open. I'm not looking for any of those guys, but I was in a draft recently, and it was Eckler, where I had no interest really in getting him. But I mean, it was like $52 and it was about to go. And I was just like, absolutely, I'm in. And I ended up getting him for like 55. And I was like, all right, well, that was a nice, unexpected thing that fell in my lap.
Exactly. And you just there, as we'll show the blueprints, it's like, okay, I might have 15 budgeted for Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I love as my wide receiver 3. But if I have to cut, half of that and go to Thielen just so I could now get Eckler, like you always have these kind of contingency plans in mind as you go. Right. Absolutely.
You got to be able to adapt in an auction. Let's talk wide receivers, shall we?
Absolutely.
Let me throw out
here. Let's get those
couple,
thumbs up.
Yeah.
Keep getting those likes up, those shares, those retweets, all that good stuff. Let us know questions you have. We're taking those call-ins we love, but you can always hit the mailbag as well and toss a comment in, and we will hit that all for sure.
All right, let me just throw you out some of the wide receiver prices that I saw on Yahoo that really jumped out at me. And these are all prices in the below $20 range. There's guys at the top that fluctuate like quite a bit, like site to site. Yeah. But the real bargains that I saw are in the lower range. Do you want me to hit those first, or do you want to talk about the guys at the top first?
I was just going to say, like, I do love, a lot of these players at the top, but I'd love you to hit your values, because I think the sweet spot is right down here where I'm scrolling down to. And I bet a lot of the names you're going to shout out are right here in this kind of, I consider them around like 3 through 6 receivers. I consider that a big tier. So whichever ones end up going the cheapest, I'm all in on. So let's hear some of those prices, and I'll give you the thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll just preface this because this is one of you and I see eye to eye mostly on auction strategy and how we're trying to build our team. This is one area that we don't see eye to eye on, which is that you are very interested in like a stud level receiver.
I don't know that I am.
A Justin Jefferson type, I thought you said.
So I have one build that I tried that out with, as like if Jefferson's going too cheap and I'm price enforcing and then suddenly he's in my lineup, I really like how it came out. My favorite lineups are definitely the running back build.
Okay. I thought that you were looking for that stud receiver, because I'm not. I'm very specific. I mean, I love some of the guys at the top, but the prices are completely out of whack for what they're actually worth. Let's say Cooper Kupp. Okay, go ahead.
In this auction guide we wrote last year, and this is how I always approach receivers. I wrote, that round 4 to 5 range of you could leave your draft and pay no more than 60 total at the entire receiver position and leave with T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp, and Mike Williams were the 3 names I shouted out. I mean,
and they were the 3 guys that I left my draft with.
Exactly, right? Like, and you ended up following that advice to a T, and it was absolutely perfect. I can't say I'll always hit it that perfectly, but 4 shots on net in this kind of range, you could offer. I bet you'll get at least one wide receiver, a top 12 guy hovering in this $13 range, and then so that's how I've always approached it. We nailed it last year, and I think this year is setting up to be as good, if not even better, in that round 4 to 5. $13 to $15 range receiver. I love these guys.
I think it's better. Okay, so it seems like you and I are actually much more aligned.
It's the best. Because before you get your names, I don't keep cutting you off, but this is the single best value bucket of fantasy drafts and snakes, round 4 to 5 receivers, and especially in auctions. There's no better, like, who's going to outpay their price. This bucket of receivers is by far the best. I want 3 of them, and they're going to maximize your entire lineup. The single best bucket of value is these receivers we're about to talk about.
And man, you get those like Cup and say like Devontae Adams, Debo Samuel, Jefferson. Even man, I want those guys out early, and I want them sucking people's money out. Jamar Chase, I saw Jamar Chase go for almost $80 in a draft. People love Jamar Chase. They love him. He's love like the sex appeal.
The best, and again, one of the beauties of an auction is when two people get in like a dick measuring contest.
A pissing contest?
Pissing contest, exactly. Like they can't give it up. My first auction draft, it was Des Bryant, and the whole room was just egging him on. We had all 12 of us live. And Des Bryant was the most expensive player in the draft by like $20, even though he was projected to be like the 20th most expensive player. And that's the stuff you love. But Jamar Chase is like the guy that could do that this year. He's sexy as hell, just like Des used to be. Him. Get him out there. Let people get in a little pissing contest and see what comes out of it. Absolutely.
And then that bucket rolls around that you're talking about. And let me give you some numbers here.
Let's scroll down.
These are Yahoo values. Obviously they fluctuate. I've been doing some ESPN drafts. I will tell you where these are way out of line and what they were going for. Mike Williams is a $13 price tag on Yahoo. Cortland Sutton, 18. I think that's still a really good deal.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson, 10.
Come on.
Gabe Davis, 9.
Yep.
Now, I will say that Gabe Davis has on ESPN has been going for more like 14 or 15, but
still a deal.
Right.
Still a deal.
Brandon Cooks, 14. They say he usually goes for 5. I've seen him go for usually around 18 to 20 on ESPN.
I was going to say he's definitely like the like of all those names, like Gabe Davis, he's sexy. People are going to want to throw their money at.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks is great, man.
He is so studly at such a unsexy, it's Brandon Cooks and the Texans. Ew. He's going to be one of those guys that goes way under the radar and goes for way too cheap. Absolutely.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got him at 18. He usually goes for 5. I've seen him go 12, 13, 14, 12 to 14 on ESPN usually.
Absolutely.
Mike Thomas, 18, usually goes for around 6. I've seen him going for like 8 to 10. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Adam Thielen, $7, although they say he usually goes for 3. Rashad Bateman, I don't like at 16, but they say he goes for 4. I like him at 4.
I like him at 4, absolutely.
Hunter Renfrow, 7, usually goes for about 2. I can attest that is correct. He's in like the $2 to $4 range.
Definitely quote unquote unsexy and will far pay off whatever you end up paying for. Yes.
Brandon Ayuk, $8. I got him for $1 on ESPN the other day.
I mean, that's a joke. Yeah.
Right. He's a milk dud.
Even 8, the milk dud, baby. $8 would be a steal for Ayuk.
Yeah. So those are some values I love. How many of those are in your bucket you're talking about?
I think every single one of them that you shouted out there is beautiful. Really, just this entire, if you're watching live, if you're listening to the podcast, I get you can't see this, but this entire range, like the ones that really rung a bell with me is Allen Robinson at 10. I mean, that he projects as my wide receiver 7. If you got the guide, you'll see that. I absolutely am in love with Allen Robinson on this team. So I think he should be. And that's again, I love the guide and why I love Jackson's tool. When I put my projections in there, he came out around $30. Like he should be going for $30. He goes for 10. Like that's one of the best discounts. Gabe Davis was right around there too, projecting as a top 15 guy that you're getting at $9. Like that would be a joke. Even up to, I think he was worth like 25 in my projections. He usually goes even at 15 would be, of course, a steal. So I love those two names. Sutton, I absolutely love as well. What's tricky for me is I really do like a lot. Like I love AJ Brown.
I love AJ Brown too, but but if you can get AJ Brown for 31, 32, which is around where I've seen him going in ESPN, or you can get Gabe Davis for like 14.
And
it's a no-brainer, right?
Do I want Allen Robinson and Gabe Davis for the price of AJ Brown? Yes. Okay. Give me the 2 guys that are just going to be absolute studs instead of the 1. So that's what I was going to say is like I don't think the gap between Pittman and AJ Brown, the price gap is clearly big, about $20 difference. But these guys, these round 4 to 5 guys, I think the production is 80 to 90%, maybe even more than what you get with a Pittman and a Brown, and you're paying $20 less. So I love, again, 3 of these receivers. Robinson, if you came out with Robinson, Gabe Davis, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, sign me up all day. I know they're all quote unquote 2 to 3.
I'll be right back. Keep going.
All of those guys would be great. So that's when we look at these blueprints. I will definitely be, you'll see, I always lock in 3 of these guys, and then maybe I go wide receiver heavy and get an Allen Robinson, a Justin Jefferson or a Cooper Kupp up top. And you'll see a build where I do that. But either way, the value is just too great. The only names, and while truth's gone, I'll highlight a couple that I don't like. DK Metcalf at 22, no. Amari Cooper at 22, God, no. Like, I want nothing to do with either of those two guys being more expensive than any of the names we've shouted out. Even if they were $5 cheaper, I wouldn't want those guys at all. Bring me on down to Hunter Renfrow at the $7 range, especially Brandon Ayuk at the $8 range. Give me that all day. And then there's a ton of guys you can just hammer your bench with as well. Talking about a guy that like I really do like that is probably going to go for more than he should is George Pickens. I think the kid is going to be an absolute stud, but when you capitalize on the buzz and the buzziness of a certain name, I could see him going for quite a bit more than what he should. So those are just a few guys. Like if he's $0, of course, I would go all in on him there. If he's $5, I'd go on him. But I bet you Pickens goes for like 10 to 15. He'll probably go for more than Ayuk type of guy. So I don't love him there. Christian Kirk for 3, like give me that all day. The guy saw 8 targets and a half in this first preseason action. Don't like Lockett. That's another name one. So in terms of like who you might want to toss out there as these receivers are going to set the price and kind of get this bucket, toss out DK. Toss out DK is especially like the sexy guy that just is not going to pay off his
Someone
price.
will spend for DK.
Yeah, I was just saying some of the guys I don't like in this range. DK, Cooper, right. They're listed along there.
Hate Cooper.
Like there's no reason to draft him. And, maybe ultimately everybody in your league is sharp and it's like, yeah, with no Watson, he's going to blow and he'll go for $2-3. And then it's like, oh, well, maybe he was a steal. But there's really not many prices I'd pay for him. I'd rather have Olave for $3. Give me those.
So you're actually hitting way into my $1 to $2 dart throw thing.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys you're naming are on that list, which I mean, it doubles. It's good content for each of those sections. There are guys that are just steals. Like Olave is a great example.
Jahan Dotson.
Yeah. I mean, you can get Lazard for like $2 probably.
You can get my favorite sleeper of the year, Isaiah McKenzie's going.
Isaiah McKenzie's like $1, right? He's on my list too.
All in on him. He's only drafted in 13% of leagues. Like, make sure you get an Isaiah McKenzie. Jahan Dotson barely drafted.
Drake
Romeo
London.
Doubs, like Rondale Moore, $1. Nico Collins.
Do you like Drake London? He goes for $1 or $2.
Oh, I absolutely love him for $1. I'd pay 10. I'd pay 15 for Drake London.
Well, there you go.
If he goes for $1. Yeah, that's
our point is the point here is that there's an abundance of good and maybe great receivers available for a lot less money than you're going to pay at the top.
Yeah, I would say great for like 10 to 15. Like you could get a legitimate top 12 guy. And then these $1 guys, any one of them could be a nice, viable wide receiver 3 at any point, a flex, even KJ Osborne. I like a lot. And you the
MVP of the Giants training camp. I think he's on that
Rondale. List. I love it. That Drake London going for $1 though, like it sounds insane saying that on a stream. A guy that's like an 7th to 8th round pick, but that really always happens in these drafts.
It does.
Those 7 to 9 round receivers, when everybody's blown their money, you'll always see an Olave, that range go way too cheap. That at least in the drafts I've historically done, there's always receivers that are falling. So that's why I have no problem paying up huge at running back, 120 like we said at running back for my top 3 guys, and coming out with $50 to $60 at wide receiver. That's okay with me. That is more than okay with me for sure.
Yeah, and that leaves you money to get a decent quarterback and also a decent tight end. Let's talk tight ends while we're here. I know a guy that we both really love is Kyle Pitts. He has been getting pricier and pricier as the summer has gone on. He started around 15 on ESPN, and I was like, I love him at 15. Now he's like 25.
And I still like him at 25. Honestly, I really do. I know
that's starting to mess with some of my other stuff.
It will make my first build I did. I was like, I love Pitts. I'm going to put Pitts in here and see how it comes out. And then I did a build without him where I punted the position and took like Everett for $1. And that team was a whole lot sexier. So it is tricky if he gets up to like 25 or onward, like more than some of these great receivers we're talking about. It does get tough. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's going in round 1 next year. Like he's $25 and that seems gross, but next year could be going for 45. Like that's one of the ones where I don't want to pay that at receiver because there's so many great options that I can get in that 10 to 20 range. At tight end though, it's Kelsey and Andrews going a little bit too much for me. They make it impossible to get one of those 3 great running back builds. But if Pitts is just at that $20 range, I think he has every bit as much upside, especially as Mark Andrews $15, $16 discount still keeps you that flexibility. There's very little below him that other than him, maybe I guess we're going already into the whole position instead of just Pitts. But once you get rid of him, like maybe Goddard for $8, like I kind of like that, or Knox in that like $5 to $8 range if they're going there. But I'd almost rather just it's Pitts or I'm paying $1 and I'm just punting the position completely.
These guys down there on the list, you're saying Goddard, stuff like that. He's not going to go for 8. He's going to go for less. Like you're going to get deals on some of these guys. You'll be surprised.
I bet you still
and then there'll be people will pay like a premium for a guy like George Kittle, who I really like as a player, but who I don't like at all at his price. $22. No thanks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this tier right here, this Goddard, Knox, like Hawkinson, Ertz, one of those guys will go for less than $5 at least. Maybe 2 of them do. That's a nice sweet spot. If you miss out on a Kyle Pitts, you'll get, as you see it, right up there with Andrews, but $15 discount. I'm in. Dalton Schultz is a little unsexy, and he might go for cheaper, but I saw him listed at 16. That's just like, if I'm paying 16 for Schultz, give me the extra $8, get me to Pitts, and let's figure it out from there. So I love Schultz at like a round 7 draft pick in these snakes, but at $16, like more than Allen Robinson, no, I'm not doing that. So I'd say I'd either look for like a Goddard, a Knox. I don't love Hawkinson or Ertz, but if they're going for like $3 to $4, after that, like I guess I do like Freiermuth. I might bump him up into that other tier. You're paying $1 for any of these other guys, and you take 2 to 3 of them and just punt the position. It's kind of how I look at that. Would you agree with that, Truth? Oh, Truth had to run for a sec. All righty. So yeah, some of my favorite punts though, like, at this position, Gerald Everett for $1, high touchdown upside in that amazing Chargers offense. Austin Hooper might see 120 targets in that offense. As the number 2 right now, because Treylon Burks has just been complete and utter garbage and has a great rapport, according to the beat writers, Hooper does, with Ryan Tannehill. Hunter Henry, probably going to catch 10 touchdowns, probably going to go for $1. Hayden Hurst has 8 to 10 touchdown upside in that Bengals offense. So if you don't get Pitts, unless Schultz goes for cheaper than he's projected at $16, or if you can get like a Goddard or a Knox for like $5, if not, I'm punting the position completely. I'm going after $1 guy, a Hooper, an Everett, an Irv Smith for $1. I know he's got his injury concerns, but that's a lot of upside too.
Yeah, you've thrown some shade at Irv Smith for these little thumb injuries and so on.
I have, but for $1, I'll take a stab. Like that's a huge upside $1. That's tough to spend $1 better at an auction, to be honest. Higbee, Buck, like plenty of these guys, you can take 2, 3 of them even, and waiver wire will have some decent enough tight ends for you. If you miss out, that's why I like getting Pitts, because I think it's going to be a Kelsey Andrews style edge at $20. But if you miss out on him and Schultz goes for too much, just punt it. Get rid of him.
All right, let's talk about some overpriced guys. Now, we've probably touched on a lot of these.
I think we kind of did, yeah. In the show sheet, we kind of separated it, but ultimately, I feel like we kind of hit them as we went. Was there any names we didn't toss out?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we mentioned them all. One that's just the hugest overpriced there is right now is Nick Chubb is $50 on Yahoo.
Yeah.
Antonio Gibson at 36, Sanders at 22, Montgomery at 35. Those are all hugely overpriced running backs. Of course, Josh Allen going for $36. There's just, you can't justify it. I love Allen. I would love to have him on my team. I'd love to root for him. But I mean, you're talking about a price that is over double like what Justin Herbert is. It's literally 5 or 6 times what Jalen Hurts is going for. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to pay that much money. It just doesn't. Obviously, we talked about DK as a guy we throw out for, get someone to blow some money on because he's just overpriced at 22. And I referenced George Kittle just a minute ago at $22. It does not make any sense to spend that for George Kittle.
And that whole list that we keep listing, write those guys down as people to nominate, as you said, Truth. Like that will get people spending money. And certainly the ones that have a little bit of sex appeal. I really similar to that, Jamar Chase, like Adams, these guys, these receivers that are going to drain wallets. Like, yes, they're great players. I'm not saying either of them are going to be busts, but if they go for $60 and now you're able to sneak in, Henry for 50 because wallets have been drained a bit, like that top tier of receivers relative to the prices those other guys go, that really just the gap isn't nearly enough to warrant, $45 between Chase and Allen Robinson. Is Chase going to outscore Robinson? Yes. Is he going to outscore him by $45 worth in an auction? That's Allen Robinson and Kamara for Jamar Chase. If I offered you that trade, I think you'd probably hammer the Allen Robinson and
you know I
Kamara
would
side in a redraft at least. Obviously, Dynasty would be far, far different. Chase, you couldn't pay enough for in a Dynasty league because he's your anchor forever. But yeah, I think those are guys that are just kind of overpriced. Good guys to drain the wall. I'm trying to pull up. I know we were texting Truth, like a list back and forth one day of like, good guys to nominate. I know we've probably just said most of them here. Chubb was one. Gibson was one. Do you remember who else? I guess we do text a shitload, so it looks like DJ Moore definitely going to go.
Oh, yeah, I always throw out DJ Moore.
DeAndre Swift was a good one. Like that kind of tier of running backs is the tier I love. He's probably going to go for the most expensive of that tier and set the price. And then like in rankings, he's a lot higher. So I think he's a great one. Adams, you texted. Javonte Williams is another one, like very sexy. And I can see why. But as long as Melvin Gordon's there, like probably
I'm not spending what people have for him. Let me throw out real quick. You listed a bunch of these guys, and this is not even a complete list. But let me just throw out $1 to $2 dart throws. These are guys average prices going right now on the Yahoo auctions. They said this is what these guys are going for. So you can get these guys in the $1 to $2 range according to Yahoo. We'll see. And again, this list is like half complete. Brandon Ayuk, Alan Lazard, Trey Lance, Derek Carr, Damian Pierce, Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, Kirk Cousins, Drake London, Brian Robinson, George Pickens, Darrell Henderson, Russell Gage, Alex Madison, Chris Olave, Darrell Williams, Jameis Winston, Kenneth Gainwell, Isaiah McKenzie, and like 40 more guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get some of these guys if you want them. And there's a bunch of these guys you're actively pursuing that you can get for nothing.
Exactly. I would say there's going to be a handful of those guys, like Pickens especially, way too buzzy right now. And deservedly so. Very sexy, very interesting. He's going to end up going for like $9. Like, so that list, Ayuk's not going to go for $1. But again, every draft, there is a point where these guys like fall and then nobody else has money. And suddenly Ayuk is sitting there and you're just like, holy shit. Like you know what? Maybe I can get Ayuk. And that's why I highly, highly recommend, as we've talked, we'll start getting into these roster constructions now. I do really like the stars and scrubs approach. Like, there's all these different. If you read an auction article, you watch videos, you'll hear people talk about balanced and all this. I really think it's very suboptimal, and the data proves it too. I listen to a great. If you like good auction content, Jack Hahn, established to run, great show. And he does like really, really high stake drafts. And we should do one someday, Truth. We got to go drive out to like New York and do one someday, or Vegas or something.
I'm in.
Would be awesome. Once we have the money to put that on the express card,
right. Don't tell my wife I said I was in, because we don't have a ton of money right now. But, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
No, the company sponsored trip will do.
Okay.
For sure. But he noted that like the historical data bears it out that the stars and scrubs approaches almost always win. Of course, in like a 14-team league or like a really deep bench where like the waiver wire is going to be absolute trash, maybe you have to adjust a little bit and you can't go fully in on just 4 players, because then the rest of your like lineup and bench is just awful. But even then, like the builds we're going to show you are all pretty much stars and scrubs, because I don't really subscribe to any other way. And I don't want to sit here and waste your time or anybody else my time going over a strategy that I just don't buy into and I think is suboptimal for you to do as well.
Yeah, don't waste our time, Wolf.
All righty. So let's pull it up. Again, I'll just highlight Jackson's tool one more time. I would build the teams on here, but it's just not, I can't do it quite as fast because of how in-depth and great it is. So I just made these builds today. And how I just do it, you can obviously customize it to you. I play in 3 receiver, 2 running backs in a flex type leagues with a 16-team roster. So you just kind of list your positions. I'm very bad at Excel, and I was able to do this. So, you set this, your total adds up to this. This is, 200 minus whatever your total is, and you just toss names in. And so, I kind of budgeted my top 3 receivers at 45 to 50, going over what Robinson was listed at 10. Gabe was listed at 9. St. Brown was going for 6. Like, I just projected them all for 15. One might go for 18. One might go for 12. Ultimately, like getting into that 45 to 50 at my top receiver spot. That's what most of these builds are going to show. I do have one with like, I tried out like a 3rd round receiver type of guy with $33 to see how that looked. I didn't hate it.
My kids are screaming. I'll be right back. Just keep rolling with this.
I'll go through these builds and then we can always review them together.
I'll be back fast.
Absolutely. Do what you got to do, Truth. I appreciate you being here with me. So chatting those through again, most of these builds are going to focus on like 3 receivers from this kind of pocket, that high end 2 type of range. In my view, their draft is low end 3 sometimes, but high end 2s. In this build, it had Pitts, as we talked about. I love Kyle Pitts. I think it's a big edge. I predicted him for 28 because I think he's going to go for even more expensive than $25. But 25, you save a few bucks, you can go a long way. And then this one, my flex ended up being another one of those $15-ish receivers, whether that's Cooks, whether that's Godwin, whether it's Deontay Johnson, just 4 of those insane value wide receivers littered this lineup, and I still was able to work in like one $55 running back, one $45 running back. So a nice round 1-2 kind of running back approach with then just peppering this like round 4 receiver range, kind of foregoing a quote unquote 3rd round talent for Kyle Pitts. And that's like my 3rd rounder. You can kind of see how these parallel with your drafts. You're just kind of, I might take 2 running backs at the bottom of round 1 and then the top of round 3. I like those guys. That's what I love about auctions. All of these drafts you'll see, I have like $3 budgeted for my starter because I'll go to Cousins for $2, $3. Like that's fine with me. I just love the flexibility a cheap quarterback goes. Bench, as you can see in all these build stars and scrubs, all for $1. Any money you save along the way will allow you to control the draft late, and that's always a nice position to be in. But it does for everybody turn into a snake, and I trust my ability to go deep. If you listen to our sleeper episode, you buy the draft guide, you'll be able to go deep and stack your bench as well. So that was like a Kyle Pitts kind of, this is the most balanced build I have. Then I moved into like, if I'm paying up at big running back and I'm punting tight end completely. So $1 tight end, $3 quarterback. So I'm punting those 2 onesie positions. And then you can see I loaded up those same 3 receivers. You back over there? I thought I heard you. Oh, no, not quite yet. Still dealing with the situation over there. But this is the 3 receivers. You can see, copy and paste. It doesn't, again, have to be just those 3 names. You're looking at that tier of guys. You always want to play the tier game. So I'll pull up that tier of receivers and just kind of show you how it looks in my rankings. This like tier 5, 15 through 19, and even then 20 through like 27. Like really 15 through 27, 3 of those guys is where I find myself the sweet spot, because these guys typically are going for 30. Sutton falls to 18 all day. But yeah, you can kind of see that parallel. This is the team I really gravitate towards though a lot, like 55, 45, 43. So I'm paying 120-ish at running back, 130 even, but I'm leaving with a Henry and an Eckler, a Cook, a Mixon Kamara, like 3 of those guys.
You're probably not getting those guys as cheap as you want.
Maybe not, but you said Jones was 36.
Kamara, Jones, you might get in that range. Kamara, no way.
I bet you he ends up going for around 50 wherever he's at, and deservedly
he's
so.
He's going for substantially more than that on the ESPN mocks I'm doing.
And okay, great, and that's why I wrote this little nugget right here. Right, can pay down at wide receiver 3 to pull the money, save the money. Like if Jones cost me 40 and Cook cost me 55, I'm at 95, and $40 is what I thought I was going to have left for a running back, but I need 6 more to get to Kamara or whoever it is. Well, then, okay, I'll forego these kind of 2, wide receiver 2s. Let me cut one of them to Adam Thielen, who goes for $6.
I was just going to say Adam Thielen. You can get for $7.
Really isn't far off from St. Brown. Like maybe even better, honestly. You save $9 and then go get it. Like, and these guys will probably all go early, so you'll have a sense of like how much you have left. But I love this build. Again, like Stafford, A-Rob, Davis, St. Brown or Thielen, Kamara, Cook, Aaron Jones. Like, would love that. Punt everything else and just horse. That's probably my favorite team. I know that's a lot of what you've been doing, right, Truth?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Another build, and this one would kind of go with like Zeke as the running back at the flex. I have it as 25. It probably won't be 25, but I do think there's always a running back. I've seen it, the history of Fournette or whatnot. There's always a running back that kind of goes like $25, $30 that ends up being worth almost a first rounder.
Zeke was cheap. He was like 23, 22 early on, but his price is starting to climb. Now he's more in like the 30 range. It's like people like listen to you as you rant on the internet about how cheap Zeke is, and he just kind of creeps up.
Drive the price up. So this one like kind of shows off, because I do, like I mentioned, I really like Pittman and AJ Brown and Keenan Allen. Like I love those guys. So if I went for one of them instead of a Gabe Davis, for example, I paid up an extra $20 for it. As I talk about, I don't like doing that. So you can kind of like hear my hesitation, but let's say I did. Let's say I really like the price AJ Brown was going at, and I'm now quote unquote stuck with him. A good adjustment is now, instead of having Kamara in my flex, cut $20, and now you go down to James Conner or Zeke. You cut $15, right? I paid that 15 up at receiver. I had to sacrifice it somewhere. I still really like Conner or Zeke as a nice flex running back. Gives me 3 really good guys at the position. I can just throw darts the rest of the way there. That's why I like having 3 good running backs, because then you can just pull darts the rest of the way. So I like that. You could even, let's say I went Chase Edmonds. I cut 10 more bucks. Now I could go, at tight end now. Maybe that pays me up to Schultz. I don't like it as I talk about it, but
no, me either.
Let's say I got a good deal on Edmonds before Connor or Zeke were nominated. Then I could realistically maybe pay for 2 really good first-round talent running backs. Or I keep gravitating, though, towards this, 3 really good running backs, 140-ish bucks, pay up. Get those guys, pay 130 at the position, lock them in because the receivers are great. The last build I'll show you, though, is I was saying, what if I do get stuck? I get stuck with one of the best receivers in the game, Jefferson, Kupp, Chase. I'm price enforcing, and suddenly no one else is going, and I get Jefferson at a price that's probably fair, $58, right? Great price for Jefferson, to be honest. Not really how I want to do my teams, because I think running backs are rarer and there's better values at receiver, all the stuff we've talked about. But let's say I do have that. Well, then I could still have Allen Robinson, Gabe Davis, and I'm punting now. I go down to flex. I still have those 3 receivers I love, like Davis, Robinson, St. Brown. And now instead of having a Cook at 55, I'll really have to hope that I can get Saquon and Aaron Jones, or Joe Mixon falls, or Kamara falls for more than they should. But 2 of those second-round guys, and now I've also got Jefferson in there. That team would tell me, I know you don't like going receiver heavy, Truth, but if you had Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Gabe Davis, St. Brown, and your running backs were still Kamara and Aaron Jones,
I'd love that.
You probably.
I would want to make sure I was building depth at running back, on the bench big time, because that's another reason that I love the 3 running back approach is injury prone. You love having 3 guys, 3 horses you can roll out. But yeah, I love that. Starting lineup, I love that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So those are the 4 kind of mocks I've done where a Pitts, and this is the most balanced type of approach. And as much as I like Pitts, I do think that running back heavy one is pretty sexy. My third favorite, though, is that my second favorite would be getting one of those alpha receivers and trying to get 2 of those round 2-ish running backs, and letting the rest of it kind of fall to you. I don't love, as you guys can tell, the Connor, going from Connor, mixing to Connor, and then having that upgraded receiver just didn't feel quite as right to me. It might be a little more quote unquote balanced, but I like going all in on 3 running backs and hammer it, or getting an alpha and still trying to get 2 very, very good running backs, low end RB1s type of deals. Those are the 2 builds I've really liked the most. How about you, Truth? Is there anything?
I definitely subscribe to the 3 running back and maybe 1 slightly lesser guy in the flex, and then cobbling together a receiving core. I don't even consider it cobbling together because there's just so much talent you can get there. Even the amounts that you have pegged to spend for these things, it's going to probably be different because you're going to be drafting live, know what they're doing, stuff like that. But those prices are actually a little more than the guys are going for on these mock drafts that I've been doing. So you could actually get lucky on some of these things and end up with those guys for even less than you're planning on spending. I really like having a core. This is something that you have really convinced me of recently that I didn't used to buy into. I really believe in the Konami upside quarterback. You've really interested me in the Jalen Hurts guys. I don't love Lamar. I do love Lamar, but not for what people are paying for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? We've said that he's one of the most overpriced guys in fantasy for a while now. We'll see if we end up being. I'm sure he's just going to stick it up our ass crazy this year. Now that we've said that,
he really could just bet this right over.
And I like getting a decent tight end. I'm usually not spending $1 on a tight end. I'm usually spending more in the $5 to $8 range. You'd be surprised. You can get some real good guys
for a Knox or a Goddard.
Yeah, or a Schultz. Those guys are there.
Yeah.
And so I like spending up a little bit. I like feeling I got one of the top 6 guys or something like that, and I barely spent anything for it.
I like that too. And that's why, with these quote unquote overestimates here, if they do go to more where they're going in mocks, all the better. That's a great, the first place I'd probably upgrade is if I only have to pay $5 more and I can get Jalen Hurts, give me that upside. He's my number 3 quarterback. If he's only going for $8 to $12, that's well worth, I'll take the cut on against St. Brown and go to Thielen again, like and save that and go to a Hurts. Like that could be great. Or a Goddard. I really do love Goddard. If he's only going for like $6, and I've saved some because I got all three of these guys, but they just didn't go. It wasn't $45; it was $40 to get those three guys. Sweet, I'll take that $5 instead of Gerald Everett. Move up to now Goddard. Like, yeah, absolutely, I'm with you. Like those are two. I love those names you tossed out. It's a great compliment to like instead of purely punting this, if you can strategically save a few bucks here and there,
right.
The upgrades could be astronomical at those two onesie positions. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Thank you. I agree. I think other than that, I really love this roster construct I'm looking at here. And like I talked about building running back depth, and looks like you're looking to grab a couple of these dollar guys. I love Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah. Love Gainwell. He's going to outscore Sanders for half the price. Like it's
half the price. Sanders goes for like $20. Gainwell goes for like $1.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. 99% discount. I love it. So yeah, those are some builds. Let us know what you guys think of it. Let us know how you're going in there. If you have auction drafts, of course, you can always hit us up. But we can look at players, we can look at prices, we can make hypotheticals. There's still always going to be some best practices that like we want to follow. We've probably talked about most of them through this show, but just to kind of put them all in one place,
bullet point them though,
and reiterate them.
Rattle down.
Number one, alternate. Why don't you go with one? I'll give another, and we'll just kind of go till we have no more bullet points.
Don't leave money on the table. You'll always feel bad about it afterwards. You end an auction and you got $11. Even if you love your team, you're just kicking yourself.
It's right? $11. You're just like,
yeah, it's indefensible. And that generally leads into point number 2, which I know that you're going to say.
Yeah, I just will emphasize the fact that there was 4 years ago, I ended up having $8 on the table. I put it on a defense just to like, fuck it. Right. I have $8. I'm going to buy an $8 defense. One, my league mates have still never let me forget about it. But 2, I wake up, maybe 4 times a month thinking about that just $8 that I didn't spend in an auction 3 years ago. So don't do it. Just pay the extra couple bucks. And I think that's probably what this next main point is. Get your guys. If it's a $60 projection, but he's at 62, go to 63. Obviously have a cap where you're like, I just can't pay $65. I can't pay $20 for this range. But be willing to spend that extra couple bucks. Don't quibble on the fact that it's $1 more than you wanted to spend at the position. Go get the guys. You'll figure out your bench later. You'll feel so much better when you finish your team and you just look at like a top to bottom starting roster of the guys you wanted to play rather than worrying for a couple bucks. Because what often happens is you end up being the guy that has more money at the end, and yeah, you get to control the draft, but somebody else is often doing the same thing. And now that's again, when you get stuck with like Jacobs for $25 and Gibson for 30, there's always, I've been that guy once. It was the fucking least enjoyable draft I've ever had in my life. Get your guys, especially the stars and scrubs, just pay the money you have to go get them.
Agree completely. Point number 3, use tiers. We talked about this, and don't be at the end of a tier. Okay. Really important. You target your guys. You want your guys, but you have to be aware of comparable guys. Like there's a group, you might not get your one guy because somebody else might just have a real hard on for him and just might outbid you. But you have comparable guys. Like I really like Dalvin Cook. I really like Alvin Kamara. I like Aaron Jones. I like those, I'm trying to snag those guys in that tier. Cook obviously is in a higher tier than them. But when that tier starts to run out, people are usually conscious of it. And that's when prices can really start to spike. And obviously once the tier ends, it's a real drop off in talent. So Be aware of that. If 5 of the guys in an 8-person tier have gotten sucked up, you better pay attention.
You better pay attention, yeah, because you're getting those bidding wars for the last guy that everybody wants that wide receiver 1 tier, right? And like you're the one left. That number 4 probably in the rankings is going to start going for more money than who should have been number 1 in the rankings. You should have just paid for in the first place. Yep. See it every single auction. It always happens. And then the last tips I have, and any more you might want to add after this, just kind of revolve around nomination strategy. That's the one thing that's different is you're not, it's not a snake draft. You're not picking guys. So get a feel for the room. Is money flying around? Nominate some guys that you don't want that people will blow their money on. Or is everybody a little bit nervous? Sneak some players in. I always it's always weird, and I never really know how to react to it. But when, let's say Taylor goes and then Jefferson goes, we have these 2 $60 guys, money's flying around, and then Allen Robinson gets nominated. And it's like, okay,
You never know how that's going to go.
Kareem Hunt was a guy for us last year, and he goes for like $7, and then he probably should have gone for 15. It's always an interesting thing. Like you can try to sneak in a guy like that. Like you really want Brandon Cooks, and nobody's going to sit here with a full wallet and want to blow money on Brandon Cooks. So you might be able to sneak him in for $4 to $5 less. It's all about feeling out the room. Maybe you get a kicker just to kind of like get a nomination out there, get a kicker edge.
Justin Tucker always gets thrown out in our drafts earlier than you would expect.
Right? Or maybe even 2, because no one's going to go to 3. And if they go to 3, then fuck them. They deserve a $3 kicker.
Oh, someone will always go to 3 in ours.
Toss those guys out. And that like kind of lets you sit back and see how the room's reacting before your second nomination. You're like, all right, now I know the money's flying. Chase is going to be hot. I'm tossing him out there. So by the time a workhorse gets nominated, a lot of people have drained some wallets. You set the pricing on a tier that you're interested in targeting. Like that Allen Robinson tier, I might nominate DK Metcalf because he's in the quote-unquote tier by the rankings. I don't want him at all, but that will kind of get the price, let me gauge how much I'm going to have to spend, and I can adjust on the fly. And I also agree, get the buzzy players out. Like Pickens right now, everybody is talking about him, and deservedly so. I'm not saying I don't like Pickens. I love him in round 9, 10, 11. Like, great pick, but he's probably the type of guy that, like, he's just got sex appeal to him. You throw him out there early, he's going to probably go for like $15 and the same price as Allen Robinson when there's an 8-round gap, in price in a stake draft. So those are a couple of the nomination strategies. I'm trying to think, is there any other ones I'm missing?
I mean, just to, kind of make the poker comp, I feel like this is obvious, but I see it happen all the time. Just like you can't go on tilt. Like, it really can happen in auctions.
It can get so ugly. Like I mentioned, the Des Bryant example, like he went for the most expensive player when he was about 20th on the board. And he ended up actually paying it out. Like he was a really good player that year. And on that note too, the idea of price enforcing, it's like, you don't want guys to go for cheaper than they should. You want to make
but you don't want to end up with somebody you didn't want though. It
exactly. Happens. And that's my ultimate point is it's not really worth it. Like you could end up tanking your build and your plan and having to adjust on the fly because Gibson was supposed to go for 25 and he's only at 11. And then you bump him up to 12. And maybe 12 on paper is a good value for Gibson, but you don't want him on your team. You're adjusting everything on the fly now for a guy that you don't want. That never feels good. So I try not to be that guy. Unless it's an egregious thing or it's a guy that I'm like, you know what? Okay, I could be okay with this guy on my roster here. Don't price enforce on the guys that you just know you don't want.
My buddy Jerome ended up with a semi-expensive running back a couple years ago that he absolutely didn't want, and I don't remember who it is. And it was totally because he was trying to drive the price. I ended up with Josh Gordon one time in the not that distant past for that exact reason, and I was so pissed.
Yeah,
he screwed me so many times.
It's a waste of money, and it like ruins the way you can build your bench. It's just not worth it. So that's the last tip that kind of came to mind for me is don't be the price enforcer. Like let somebody else play that role. Really only do it if it's a guy that like it's a guy and a price. You're like, I would be okay with this, now I don't, but even then it's like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, let's say I really want Amon-Ra St. Brown and there's a wide receiver 3, Judy. Yeah. Most people actually like Judy more than him. So I'll use him as the example. And Judy's going for 2.
I do not.
I don't really like Judy that much. But let's say he's going too cheap. And I'm like, okay, I could get behind Judy and he goes for 15. And then Amon goes for 15 later. It's like, well, I had the guy I really wanted, and I had to get cute and price enforce. Like, even though I don't mind him being on my team, even those scenarios, it just kind of like, it's cute. Don't fucking do it. Just get your guys. You're gonna be okay. Pay up for your guys. Don't make other people have to pay up if it's not someone you want. That's how I feel about it.
Agree completely.
Sweet.
You want to hit we got some questions.
We got a shitload of questions, baby. I love it. So this is a perfect time too. If you wanted to do the call-in, we already had 2. It worked out. So you'll love to see that. So if you want to get your face on, or you don't have to have the camera on. You guys are welcome to just do audio as well. Put a picture for that too. So that link is at the top, but let us know what questions you guys have about auctions, about your fantasy leagues coming up. Cause we know it's that time of the year.
Dylan says, what's up fellas? Opinion on Dobbins. Give me like your 30-second pitch on J.K. Dobbins.
I'm worried about the health, at least early season. I think he is a phenomenal talent if and when he does get healthy. I think it's the best run scheme. So supreme talent, supreme run scheme. You love it, but they are so committed to their committee that I think the ceiling's always a little bit capped. So at his price, like I don't have a lot of Dobbins, really any at all, because if I'm going running back there, I prefer Dillon. And I typically have had 3 running backs already, and he goes to the same round as like Amon-Ra St. Brown or like, even Allen Robinson and Gabe Davis sometimes. So I don't have a lot of him at his price.
Dylan also says sleeper does have, and then he meant auctions.
Nice. Right. And axes. Be careful.
And axes, right. Both things in plenty. Mitch Chavez, how you doing, guys? How you doing, Mitch?
How we doing, Mitch? I'm shocked Mitch wasn't one of the first people to try out the video jumping on.
We'll get Mitch on there.
Mitch will definitely be on here for sure.
Jeremiah Moore says maybe one day I'll try it an auction draft. LOL. You should do it this year, man. You should just get in a public league and do it. Even just drafting on the computer and stuff like that against people, it's still really, really fun.
It's so much fun. Just do a sample. And then you'll have a taste for it. You'll never be able to go back.
That's true. Seamus says, hey, boys, Seamus. We almost thought about having Seamus show up on this show. Maybe he should call in. Seamus, if you're around, you should call in.
Yeah, talk about the call-in of all call-ins. The most electric fan of all.
He is the most electric fan at all. Barrett says, this is, we're talking about, made the incredible tool that we've been discussing the whole time. Thanks, guys. Also haven't answered any auction questions in the comments. Guy, you like listening to us. You think we know a little bit. This guy knows a ton, and he may or may not still be here. So feel free to pick his brain.
He's better.
He's awesome.
Genuinely smarter than either of us by a whole lot. We have the personality. We can chat. We have some good gut calls too. But in terms of like the money and budgeting and he's a financial advisor and he works in this stuff, like accounting. Like he applies those principles, and it's just every time I read his stuff and use his tools, I am infinitely smarter. So. Take him up on that offer.
Mitch says it's an awesome tool. He's looking forward to the guide. Also, it was very well done last year. We talked about the guide briefly earlier in the show. And like I said, if you weren't here an hour ago, I've read it 3 times. And, I caught a lot of grammatical errors, but that's about it. And fixed them all. And it's the best one he's ever done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you guys will love it.
Scott Brown says Jones, Dillon, and Rodgers is QB. What do you think?
Packers? I don't know what he's
right.
getting at.
That's the Green Bay Packers. That's who you're talking about.
The Green Bay Packers, baby. But I will say this. I do think the offense is going to run through the running backs. Even if they're used as receivers, those are the 2 best weapons. LaFleur's acknowledged that. So I really like both Jones and Dillon at their price tags.
Matt, Noto. The Truth and the Wolf, dynamic duo.
Our guy, Noto. Good to see you the last few streams. Good to see him popping up.
Scott Brown, cheap wide receivers.
Scott Brown, I don't know.
Not really a question, but
get it together, Scott Brown.
Cheap wide receivers, Wolf. Give me a cheap. Well, we listed a ton of $1 to $2 guys you could get cheap. If you're talking in the 10 to 12 bucks, you can get some absolutely great receivers for cheap, and there's 40 guys for $1 you could get that you'd be happy with.
Exactly. I think receivers in general, way too cheap in snakes in auctions. That's the position you can get some quality stuff. My favorite cheap receiver, if that's the question, is Isaiah McKenzie.
Isaiah McKenzie. That's the Wolf's boy.
I'm all in this year.
Corey Wilkes, the Wolf, fire.
The Corey, fire back.
Toon says, can we please have Denny live on a Sunday AM? I think it would be YouTube gold. I mean, probably. We probably could.
Denny's only requirement to getting live on Sunday is he has to be at least 5 deep before we allow him in.
All right.
And I don't know if you're gonna have a problem with that because I think we typically, you are usually 5 deep by the end of the Sunday stream, Denny. So
now Scott Brown, Jefferson or Lamb? Jefferson.
Yeah, it's not even close to me. My brother Alex is all over Lamb over Jefferson, and no way. If Lamb comes even close to Jefferson, what Jefferson already has done, that'd be great. Jefferson out in the cup roll, I love Justin Jefferson. Love.
Dan said I traded Amon-Ra and Lockett for DJ Moore. Win or loss?
I'm not a DJ Moore guy. So honestly, I think Amon-Ra is.
I like Amon-Ra the best. I mean, if you look at what these guys would be going for in an auction, DJ Moore's price is more than those 2 guys combined. But I don't agree with it.
I think most people would tell you won. People love DJ Moore. I just never have, and honestly, it hasn't really burned me yet. So
right, not loving him hasn't burned me either.
No.
Jeremiah Moore, how do you feel about Jones? When I've read he might have a 50% snap share with Dillon.
It does lessen it a little bit. The fact that he was going ahead of Kamara, who's the every down horse, should not be happening anymore. That being said, he's so efficient on his touches, and I think, the snap share, I don't buy that in the sense because I think he'll be on the field a lot together. Like, will come into the backfield and Jones will go to the slot because they really don't have anybody else out wide. He had the most targets share per game, Aaron Jones did, when Devontae Adams was out the last 2 years. And I think he averaged like 11 targets a game or something crazy. Yeah. He averaged 26 fantasy points a game in games without Devontae Adams. So, like, he becomes their kind of Kamara. To me, it's the closest we're going to get to Ingram Kamara of like 4 years ago when both guys were top 12 backs. Like, this is very similar in my opinion.
Jeremiah then also says A-Rob, Sutton, and Gabe Davis would be a killer trio. It would be, and that's attainable, man.
I mean, 10, 18, and $9 according to the auction values. That's less than one, like AJ Brown almost. Like, so right. Yeah, it's very attainable. I'm all in on that trio. Sutton, like, we didn't talk about Sutton enough today. Like, $18 for him. I know he's a little more than A-Rob and Davis, but the go-to guy for Russ, he's gonna feast.
Then Scott Brown, Marquise Brown. Cheap.
Indeed. Scott Brown, I love the comments and interaction, but I can't really make sense of what you're trying to get across today.
Snowy Mountain Farms. I know this guy, actually.
Do you? He's been tuning in a lot.
Yeah, I know him. He's in my league, so he's going to know everything that I'm interested in.
He's been a very loyal Wolfpack member.
Oh, yeah. He's a guy. I've known this guy for like over 40 years.
Hopefully he's not going any cruises anytime soon.
No, he's not that guy. He knows that guy, though. Snowy Mountain Farms. I haven't done too many auctions, but I'd say it's best to let the draft come to you. Last year, I targeted a few players too hard, and my team ended up sucking.
Yeah.
Then he also says ESPN has Andrews at number 1 tight end for $44. I wouldn't pay it.
No way.
Either.
I think this is a good philosophy, Snowy, though. Like, I think even snake drafts, like every draft is a living, breathing organism. We always say that auctions far more than even a snake draft because every single second you're on. So it's good to have a general game plan, though. I would say, like, it's not a good thing to have too many players where you're like, I have to get this guy and I'm going to pay whatever price it takes. That's not a good strategy. But to say, I know I want a tier, 1 and 2 running back. I want at least one in those top 2 tiers. And I need to have a second by the end of tier 4. And then you can kind of be flexible with, it doesn't matter which guy it necessarily is, whatever good value's in there, let it kind of flow to you. Now, of course, if like all running backs are going for 15 more bucks than you want to pay, then you zag and you get receivers because eventually something breaks. Like
right. Everything can't keep going for $15 more than it's supposed to because there's a finite amount of money. You just got to pay attention.
Right. Exactly.
So I agree with that. Yeah. You don't want to get stuck on a player. Like, I love Allen Robinson. I mean, there's multiple people in my league that are like, that know I love Allen Robinson, and I'm sure they'll just try to bid me up on it. And there's a price I won't pay for him, and I'll pick up somebody else who I consider like in the same bucket.
And now you get Brandon Cooks for $8 less than he went,
right? Because somebody was a dick and just tried to drive me up on like my prices.
Yep,
it's got to be hell for you in your league because I mean, you probably got 12 people in your league, and they probably all are RSJ heads.
You're all going to watch this before our draft. I promise you that. So, Fez Leaguers, good.
This is why we should do a Roto Street just like 1 year auction league because, I mean, we all have exactly the same information. Exactly. Like we just have this one pool of knowledge that we all dip into, and it would just be really fun to watch us in an auction, just kind of trying to play chess with each other, but it just devolving into just shit. Like
especially
early.
If we could get everyone together, I know that's tough.
I would absolutely do it if there was an RSJ auction. Like no question about it.
Come out to you and go to the casino and get a room or something.
Even freaking better.
We got to make that happen. I don't know if this summer is probably lost too much time this summer to do it live at least. But yeah.
Well, we should do one online then at the very least. It could be low stakes even, but we should absolutely do an in-person Roto Street Journal auction draft next year at the latest.
Absolutely.
And I will definitely make myself available.
Committed to it.
Me too. All right. Chris says, damn, I'm late.
He's been a regular. I love seeing Chris show up every show. He's a fantasy legend here. I love it.
Marco said, hey, I was offered Keenan Allen, Kelsey, and Madison for Jefferson and Schultz in a full PPR.
That's close.
Should I accept?
That is really, really tough. Man. I don't know if Madison really moves much.
Madison doesn't move the needle, but man, Kelsey, Keenan Allen.
It's nice. It's real nice. I think Jefferson's just like that next level of dude, though. And I think he might set some records this year. So as much as I do like Keenan too, there is a cliff coming for Keenan. He's getting old. He's getting at that age. And if this is the year and you just got rid of Jefferson and he goes for 2,000 receiving yards, like you're going to be kicking yourself pretty hard. So I'd stay put. I like Schultz enough, especially in full PPR, that I'd probably hang tight. It's really close though. That's a very tough one to say no to. I'll tell you that.
I agree with you. I think it's very tough. I'm probably sticking with Jefferson, best player in the trade, and on the up and up. You know, he's going this way.
Yeah, Allen and Kelsey are both a risk to drop off. They're both a little bit older, so like even if one of them
are, but I see the appeal though.
I see the appeal, but there's more downside to that side of it. Whereas your two guys are pretty locked in.
Brian Martinez says Mixon is still going to be undervalued this year for whatever reason. I like targeting him in auction for sure. Yeah, he's one of the guys that I always look at. I put him in that same tier. There's maybe a couple guys I'd like more, but I'm very happy if I end up with Mixon.
If he goes for anything under $50, all in. Like I know he's right around that.
He's right around there. Yeah.
He's another guy similar to Henry. Everyone seems to hate, and it's like, okay, I'll take him at a discount, please. Yeah.
Why hate him? What did he do? Like punch a woman in the face or something?
The running that's very hateable. But in terms of fantasy output, running back 4 now gets a better line. And tell me,
look, and I'm willing to take him. It's just funny when you're like, I don't get why people hate him. It's like I get why people hate him.
We have a very narrow lens here, Nat. We're not judging character, just fantasy value.
No, but I mean that seeps into some of this shit.
It does.
I mean, there's guys I don't want, and for some enough time has passed with Mixon now where I'm willing to have him. You know.
Yeah.
Chris Thomason, did you see where Etienne is the week 1 back? I could see it being a Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara type deal where the Jags just have no choice but to keep Etienne on the field.
As long as he's the player he was in college and that translates to the pros, like he's the most explosive playmaker they have, and it's not very close. So I really do like Etienne. I've warmed up to him a bit. I keep saying, I think you've asked about him a couple times, Chris. Like the fact that he's now falling to round 4 is now where I'm okay going after him. The fact that he was $20 in an auction, like that's very, very sexy to me. When he was going early, round 3, alongside some of those ace receivers and ahead of a couple workhorse backs, I wouldn't prefer. But now that he's falling, yes, I love his price.
Chris Thompson says Jefferson may end up having a godly year.
Yeah, he said he wouldn't accept it either. So we're on the same page there.
Barrett Jackson, we're talking about here again. Love the strategy of building out a ton of different lineup combinations like the Wolf is doing. I do too. If you have a bunch of different options you like, one will probably happen on draft day. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I like how you've lined it up because, like you said, it's fluid. It's always changing. And pretty much anything that happens is going to fall into one of those categories. And so after, you've placed 2 or 3 guys, you are committed to like 1 or 2 of the builds, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And you can notice with mine too, like I did have a lot of the same players, but it was more the archetype of the tier that was really important there. And it like most of those builds centered around getting 3 of those round 3 through 6 receivers. I cannot emphasize it enough. That is where the value is this year in snakes and especially in auctions. Like that is the pocket of just, you got to get those guys. They are way underpriced.
Brian Martinez, build I'm going for is the hero running back. I value depth and will save money to get guys like Elijah Moore, Pollard, Clyde. I don't like Clyde, Penny or Walker. They're all great values.
I see that. And a very popular best ball strategy is the hero running back. I guess I don't know. I don't mind those guys. I just don't, none of them move it for me. And I want to be moved. I want to get a good old roster bait in after I draft. So, CEH ain't doing that for me this year. No. I love the 2 horses and just you fingers crossed they stay healthy.
Do you think CEH, what's the worst call we've ever made?
Probably him. Because he was so high.
We had him like going 7th overall
top
or something.
Yeah, I think top 5 even. I think we had him at 5. And it was like, it was the Andy Reid workhorse. We bought into the archetype and the player was just not.
You think that's the worst call we've ever made at Rose Street Journal?
I think given the value that was attached to it, a first rounder, that was a very, very bad one. We've definitely gone in on like really bad players before. But that was the most costly error by 100%.
Remember how much we loved Martavis Bryant?
Yeah. I still don't even regret it.
I mean, I do now.
Just the sex, I don't regret it because of the couple roster baits I got out of it. Truth.
I got some roster baits out of it.
Yeah, maybe a couple fun nights.
A couple. Jackson says, I also want to point out the Yahoo values and default values in the tool are based on a 10-team league. Wolf bumping up the prices for a 12-team league makes a lot of sense. Okay. Mm-hmm. Brian Martinez says Scary Terry is cheap. Mike Williams, T. Higgins. T. Higgins is not that cheap, actually. People are scared of these guys, but I'm all for taking the high risk, high upside receivers.
Yeah, based on the auction ones we looked at, like Terry was at like 26. A little too much for me if Mike Williams was going for 13. Like 2 Mike Williams versus Scary Terry. T. Higgins in that $30 range. Like
T. Higgins is going for more than that on ESPN. I'm telling you, he's like 38.
Not for me. And I like T too.
I love T. Higgins
as a player, but like at the same price as a Pittman or a AJ Brown, like give me the alpha, not the number 2. And I love the player at his price range. It's either too inhibitive of me getting my 3 running backs I really want, or if I'm going to go with the receiver in that price range, there's just a couple guys like AJ Brown, Pittman I like more.
Chris says, I don't know why people sleep on James Conner.
Me neither. 18 touchdowns and regression. The regression police are coming for me. Oh no. Like, yeah, okay. He probably won't have 18 touchdowns again, but they feed their running backs on the goal line.
I think we already answered this one. Snowy Mountain Farms. I traded James Conner.
I don't like DJ Moore just for the. Oh, he's asking the chat now too. He wants.
The chat. I traded James Conner from McLaurin last year. It killed my team. No one had wanted Conner before that point, but after that, he really took off.
Yeah, I love it. Great move.
Such a bitch. Daniel Hallen, would you pair Lance with Kittle or Ayuk?
More likely to get Ayuk just because at Kittle's price, I'm usually taking receivers at that range. So I love where Ayuk goes. I mean, obviously, I'd love to pair them both, though. I'd love to stack it up. And Kittle, I've seen Kittle fall to like the end of 5, early 6. I love him there. But too early for me in most drafts.
He's the type of guy in an auction. It totally is going to depend when he gets put out there. Because there's a time he could get put out there where he might command $20-$25, which is crazy. But there's also a time he might get him for like 6 or something like that.
Yeah, all day on that.
And then I'm all over that. Craig Sarno, what's up, boys? Finally back in fantasy mode. Let's fucking go. And then he says, who would you keep? Herbert for an 11, Montgomery for a 6, Debo for a 7, Davis for a 12, or Kittle for a 3. Absolutely not Kittle for 3. He says you can keep 2, but it can't be from the same position.
Oh, man. I was going to say, my favorites would be probably Debo and Gabe, but Herbert at 11. So, yeah, it's Herbert for sure. Montgomery's kind of round 5, 6 anyway, so no, thank you. I love the Debo for a 7. As much as I love Gabe Davis, that is a nice steep discount on him too. It's Herbert and it's one of the receivers. I do go Debo, like a mid-second rounder right now. You know what you're getting. Gabe Davis speculative upside is pretty damn close to what Debo is, but it's speculative still. I think it's pretty good speculation. I couldn't be more sure on Gabe Davis. How do people not love this guy? Like, how is it a debate?
No, I agree with you completely. It hurts me to say it, but I'm taking Herbert and Debo here.
Yeah, it's really tough to send Gabe back for the price, but yeah, definitely Herbert.
Daniel Hallen, Kittle or Schultz?
I keep calling him Kettle.
I know.
Kettle or Schultz. Speak in the English accent. Kettle. I go. This is actually a really tricky one. In PPR, I did have Schultz come out higher in the projections, but even then, Kittle's just got that, like, I can win you a week by myself 30-point type of game, and Schultz won't do that. He'll be steadier all year, but I go with the Kittle, just a little sexier. The Kettle.
All right, we're going with Kettle.
All
right, Chris Thompson, pitch on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wolf, 30 seconds. I'm timing you. 30 seconds on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Go.
The guy put up 25 or more points in 5 of his last 6 games, was scoring more than Cooper Kupp in your fantasy playoffs. Yeah, the targets were hurt. No, the guy is an alpha. He finally showed to the team, I can be this guy. The list of people that have averaged 25 fantasy points or more in the fantasy playoffs as a rookie, it's like him, Odell, and Randy Moss, and that's it. And then like 18 or more points is like AJ Brown, Jefferson. Like he's among very elite company. I don't know why people can't just accept the fact this guy's actually fucking good.
All right, there you go.
30 seconds. Did I hit it?
29 seconds.
Yeah.
All around. What's your target percentage allocation goals for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and a super flex this year?
That's a lot.
That's a big question.
I mean, I don't do a ton of super flex. I would highly recommend Raw Romp. Watch the show we did with Graham Barfield. Great super flex mind. Really picked his brain. Obviously, I've never done a super flex auction, but like the prices just completely flip. Suddenly, right. RB ones are now QB ones. They're the most valuable commodity. I leave my super flex regular drafts going QB most of the time. So that's how I would target it in an auction. I can't give you much more than that, unfortunately.
Daniel says, at work, I'm trying to watch. I'll watch the playback later, but still throw out a thumbs up and a great show, guys. As always, thank you for doing a little of our PR work for us, Daniel.
That thumbs up does really help. We've got some, absolutely. Active comment section today. Love it. Would appreciate that thumbs up if you haven't already hit it to continue to help us get out there.
And Chris says, I have a question. Do y'all know who the fantasy flock is?
I've seen his stuff. I've never sat and watched it fully. He seems like he's got a good personality and he's certainly got a good following. So, respect to what he's built. I've never talked with him or interacted with him, but he seems to be opinionated and have some stuff to back it up. So I love watching people grow in the space. I don't know what's your opinion of him, Chris. I don't watch enough of. I really don't tune into any other fantasy stuff other than Barrett and the guys I have on. The guests are the only guys I actually tune into other than our own stuff. So I don't have the flock before. Did you know who the flock is?
No, I'm old.
Yeah, he does a lot of dynasty stuff. He seems. I don't know. Let us know what your opinion is. He's got a good following. I'll tell you that.
Jackson says it probably depends on your league setting. Probably prefer more slightly. Oh, this is addressing that trade slightly in a typical league, but if it's a 14 or 16 team, it's different.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
We just talked about this a little bit. Kenny said, how would a super flex league affect your preferred roster build strategy? Wolf actually just touched on that. Can't decide which way I want to go. And then Snowy Mountain Farm said they did a whole show the other day on that.
Yeah, check that out. If you want super flex, I know it's not auction super flex that we talked about, but the same idea. If a first rounder is costing you 55 to $60, I'd pay that for at least one of my QBs, if not maybe two of them. So I'd really hammer it.
And then Chris says, I love the show, man. I'm glad I found y'all. Me and my buddy have talked about starting one for forever now. And he says, and sorry, I keep bringing up Etienne. I just want him to succeed for me. So speaking into existence.
Speaking into existence, my man. If you're bringing him up repeatedly, it means 1, you're here every time. Love that. 2, you're interacting every time. Love that. And 3, he's a good player. There's nothing wrong. Speaking into existence, baby. We love having you. If you're interested in hamming it up fantasy wise, just shoot at Roto Street Wolf a DM. We're always looking to chat with new people. So hit me up, Chris.
Jeremiah Brown says A-Rob was the worst call. I took A-Rob as my wide receiver 1 last year.
He sucked last year, but I'm sure, Jeremiah, you've recognized at this point he's not with the Bears or Matt Nagy. He's with Stafford and McVay. So it's just a world difference. If I also understand if you can't forgive somebody after they burn you as bad as he did. He was probably the worst pick you could make last year at his price. But I guess C-Mac was the way the injuries happened with him too.
At least I got a couple good roster baits out of it.
A-Rob gave you nothing last year, not even a bait at all.
Not even a dry, anything.
He gave you a good cry. He gave you some tears. This is one I would highly recommend you forgive, though. Try to forgive and forget because this is by far the best quarterback he's played in. The one time he was in an offense that was ranked in the top 20 passing, it was, I think, 19th, is Blake Bortles. And he was the wide receiver 6 in fantasy.
Also, I know I've brought this up before. He's younger than Cooper Kupp.
That's wild. I keep forgetting that. It's mind-blowing.
Well, he seems like he's a 15-year veteran or something. He's not. He's 27 or something, or 28. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Daniel says, what's the most you would bid on Gabe Davis? At least for me, Daniel, it's impossible to actually throw out a number because it all depends on what have I gotten so far.
What have players been going for? It's so hard to say that. I think I wouldn't go over $20 for sure. But it depends. I mean, if I got money to blow, I could see it, but 20 feels like the limit.
It feels like the limit, but I can see a lot of scenarios where you would you would go 24, 25, 26.
I don't think he's going to struggle to pay that off. I really don't.
Right. That's why you'd be willing to do it. Chris said, I asked because I saw an Instagram reel of him saying basically don't draft Gabe Davis and draft Marquez Valdez. Interesting data point.
But Gabe Davis is very polarizing. I will say that people either love him or hate him. So
what Brown should Breece Hall go in?
Late 4th, early 5th.
And the guy on the left looks like Sean McVay. That's you.
I've gotten that a few times. I will take it every time. That's a great man to be modeled after. I'll take it.
I've been told I look like Gronk a bunch, but I don't see it.
You do get that a lot. And I've gotten McVay this is the 3rd time. And people always disagree. No, you don't. And when I say I've gotten that doppelganger, no, you don't look anything like
No,
him.
You look a little bit. I see the McVay comp a little bit. There's actually a guy on The Bachelor you look like. The Bachelorette. He's
what a
fun,
compliment. Yay.
he's probably going to win.
All right. I look like the winner of The Bachelorette. I'll take that. That sounds better to me.
Right. Not like The Bachelorette.
Not the desperate guy getting drunk on the first night, getting kicked off.
No. This guy's gone a long way. He's made it to hometowns.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring Bachelorette back to the.
There's a guy from Beverly that made it to the hometowns, right? Like Avon or something like that is his name.
Yeah, he's there too.
Beverly guy. Yeah.
That's not the guy you look like.
My brother said he's kind of a tool, so who knows?
Raven?
He graduated with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He knows him?
Yeah, he knows him well. They played basketball together.
Crazy. Small world. Jeremiah Moore. I'm targeting A-Rob. I've forgiven him for now.
Love it.
Denny Jennings. Stop bringing up Justin Jefferson. Every time I hear his name, I dry heave knowing the Eagles passed on him for stone hands Rager.
Yeah. I'm surprised you don't throw up and not just dry heave. That's such a bad move.
Daniel says, I have DK and Jefferson already. Chris says, Super Bowl champ. Definitely looks like an NFL head coach. You do. But like NFL head coaches have changed their look like in our lifetimes. They used to all just be like old white men.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like Kingsbury and stuff. Have you seen like the models these guys date too?
Oh, they're doing okay.
Jeez. If I look like those guys, all right. I'll take it.
Have you seen Jared Goff's girlfriend?
Yeah, insane.
Yeah. He's doing well. Like, and it's like all the shit we, losers like us give him on these podcasts, and he's like, he takes it. He's like, you got me. I'm just
low end QB3. He's like, yeah, okay.
I'm gonna go back to my mansion and my smoking hot girlfriend or wife or whatever the hell.
Well, you talk from your kitchen, like
right. You're drafting from your basement, which is literally where I'm drafting. Exactly. I'm recording. I am in fact in the basement right now.
Yeah,
it's not my parents' basement; it's mine. But still,
oh, it's great.
That's it, man.
Yeah, we've always talked about doing a super fan league, which would be amazing. It's so much to balance right now. Like if and when we are full time on this, I can't wait to do a super fan league. It's just one of the things that like it ends up becoming the last league I check, and I never want to give people my like weakest attention, if you know what I mean. So it's like I'd rather just not even do it than underdo it. You know what I mean? So I'd love to. Maybe we do a mock draft, like you're saying, something or a best ball, like that type of stuff. Yes,
best ball. We could find time for that. And I just want to put out there again I want to throw it out there. We should do an RSJ online. It could be an online auction this year.
Yeah.
Next year we have to do it in person, but we should move on that because that would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, Wolfpack, awesome stream. Hopefully, if you do auction drafts, you like that, or we got to your question. If you aren't already, please consider subscribing. I know a few new faces in the chat. Love to see that. Consider jumping in the live call-in on the next show. It was great to see some people, Tunes and Denny Jennings, some RSJ legends, testing it out today.
People watching from work.
And absolutely. So awesome time, Wolfpack. Again, hitting that thumbs up on your way out. If you haven't already subscribed, we continue to hammer shows. I'll be off air. I have a buddy's bachelor party this weekend, leaving tomorrow for that. So I will be off air until next week. School starts next week, but you know how it is. I'll be doing the streams at night. So yeah, we'll figure out some good streams to wrap up this preseason. You can always hit me up at Roto Street Wolf with any questions. RotoStreetJournal.com is where we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Find all our rankings and whatnot. And the guide will be up at some point today. We got the confirmation email while we were going live that it is all set. We just have to give him the thumbs up and it will be on. So check out rotostreetjournal.com/2022 guide. Probably where the URL will be. So that should be up within the hour. And so if you're catching the replay of this, the guide will probably be up there for you. We'll put a link in the descriptions of all these videos as well. Awesome stuff, guys. Thank you again for being here. Let's dominate those 2022 drafts. And a wolf or a fantasy sheep. Be the wolf. Later, guys.
By the guide.
By the guide.